السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، مساء الخير جميعا. أهلا بكم في برنامج نيوكاسل مع وليد، الحلقة الأخيرة في هذه السنة. مباراة تجمعنا إن شاء الله مع مانشستر يونايتد يوم الاثنين 11 مساء. ومعنا الليلة ضيف كبير من مدينة نيوكاسل، وهو بالأصل من مانشستر يونايتد. هو مدرب يعمل في تدريب أحد الفرق الناشئة، ومتصدر الدوري في بريطانيا. رحبوا معي بالاستاذ جيمي ماكاي. طبعا بالبدايه نبغى يعني اللي عنده اسئله او استفسارات خاصه في مانشستر وفي نيوكاسل في مباراه ان شاء الله اللي بعد بكره. بالبدايه نرحب جيمي. لازم we would like to welcome coach Jimmy Mackay. Welcome, Jimmy.
Hello, mate. You okay? Nice to see a familiar face again. How's things?
We always met at end of the year because the schedule of Premier League put Newcastle and Manchester at last day or last week of the year. We just win Saudi Arabia. We just win against Iraq in the semi-final. So congratulations to Saudi Arabia. مبروك للسعودية الفوز الكبير مع العراق قبل قليل. مباراة سعدتنا كثيرا وعادتنا يعني حسينا بروح الأخضر عادت من جديد. Jimmy, of course, you didn't watch the game.
No, I seen the result though. 3-1. It's a good result, yeah.
Yeah,
you happy with that one?
Of course.
Go to the next round.
Yes, historically, Iraq win more in this cup specifically, but we are happy for the great return of Saudi Arabia team after facing many issues with the coach and tactics and stuff. Jimmy, welcome again. We're happy to have you. We would like to get, you have more knowledge about Newcastle and Manchester United, both teams. That's why we try to hunt you today, and I am glad that we successfully have you tonight. I promise you to go easy on you because the situation of Manchester United. I would like to start. We'll talk, of course, about Newcastle, but I would like to start with maybe Ronaldo at statement last night with the Sober Club or Sober Globe, I think, or Sober Soccer, I think, event of the trophy, and he mentioned that he talked about Premier League, and I quote: Ronaldo says Premier League is most difficult league in the world. All the teams are good. I said that a year or more. The problem with Man United, it's not the coach. It's about a tank of fish. If there is a sick fish, you need to get it out to solve the problem. But if you put back the fish in the tank, it will still sick and the problem still going on.
Yeah,
that's the problem. It's more deeper in Manchester United. Changing of coach is not enough.
Yeah.
Have you heard this statement? And what do you think?
Yeah.
What does Ronaldo mean? Who's the sick fish in Man United?
Good question. There's a few sick fish, I think, in Man United, mate. But I know what he means. I think he's justifying it to, like, I don't know, like SeaWorld, for example, where they've got the orcas, and if you look at the orcas in the wild, they're healthy and their dorsal fins really high in the sky. But if you see them in SeaWorld, their dorsal fins over and they're really sick and they don't look very healthy. They don't swim. I think he was getting along the lines of that, but he used the aquarium, which is very true. If you take a sick animal out of its environment and make it better and put it back into the environment it got sick in, it's going to be sick again. I think it was a really good analogy, the way that he put it across. Quite intelligent, to be honest with you. But he's right in what he's saying. It's not... There's a cultural problem at Man U. Like, a lot of the foundations of the club, and I'm not going to bore people. People have listened to me on here before, وليد, that spoke about the ownership and stuff. I don't need to bore you all with that. But at the end of the day, the biggest problem that the whole fan base united was to get the Glazers out, and they're still there. So although we've got Ineos and their ideas, and what I will say straight off of the back of this as well, for anybody that's listening to this, I never wanted them. I was vocal on my X account last year that I didn't want Ineos, because the whole plan was to have the Glazers and work with the Glazers, and the Glazers are what Ronaldo's referring to. There's a cultural issue at the football club that mediocre is okay. And for me, I'm a 35-year-old man. I've been brought up from my father watching Man United, all the glory days. You know, I could tell you loads of memories I have of Man U in Ferguson's era, and I was lucky to watch my club in that era. But it was from the top to the bottom was about winning. It isn't anymore. Like, it's about money and cutbacks and where can we save. It's not about what happens on the pitch. It's not about adding trophies to the trophy collection anymore. It's about money and finance. And I don't really know a lot about that, to be honest. I'm not going to sit here and waste anybody's time trying to speak about that aspect of the club. I'm just a football fan that watches my team, and I love my team, and I just want to see the best team on the pitch and players I can relate to. I don't even like the players. Do you know what I mean? Because there's been a cultural issue at the club where they've almost got this American mentality of, well, it doesn't really matter about winning as long as we're making money. And if you go back and leave Man United to the side for a minute, they've done the same with their American football team. The fan base hate them as well. They might have won a Super Bowl. Don't know when they won it, a couple of years ago. But in general, it's been the same process as what they've done with Man U. They've made a lot of money, but there's not been any success. And an FA Cup and a Carabao Cup in the last couple of years is not really cutting it, you know? And this is the bigger picture of the ownership and the culture, the poison culture at Man United comes from the owners. If your owners don't want to win, you ain't got no chance. And that's the issue. It's not about winning for them. It's about making money. And they have invested money. I'm not going to sit here and be naive and say they haven't spent any money, but they've given it to people that didn't know how to spend it. And if you buy bad players, eventually you get a bad team. And this is what we've got now. I don't even recognise the team. It's not a Man United team, you know?
When I see last game against Wolverhampton, Martinez, Maguire, Euro at the defense, Ugarte, Mazrou'i, Maino, Dalot in the middle, Diallo, Fernandez, Hoyland. It seemed that it's like mid-table team.
Yeah. There's a lot of players.
I'm wondering how Maguire get back to lead the defense.
He's the only one that's playing well, mate. To be brutally honest, he looks comfortable in a free. He's never gonna be everybody's cup of tea at Man United. But over the last probably 3 games, he's been the best defender, and De Ligt was the best defender, and he's injured. Well, he's not well. Martinez looks lost. The role that Amorim wants him to play, where he's covering the wing-back position, he can't do it. Gets out of position. Euro is a young lad that's just being flung to the Sharks. Like, this is a young lad that's supposed to come in and learn his craft and learn how to play in the Premier League. Everybody's expecting him to be like the next Van Dijk. Like, he needs time. You know, he's playing in a new system. He's never played in a free back before. He needs time, and he's been injured. You know, we don't have a left back at the club. We don't have a left wing back. Luke Shaw's, I mean, he's not even worth talking about. I could play at left back more reliably than him, and I ain't even signed to the club. Like, there's just so many issues, I believe. It's not just the mentality. It's the players ain't good enough, mate. Like,
we read a lot about Garnacho and Rashford's situation.
Yeah.
As we read from different accounts, maybe not labeled, they said the rumor says they leak the lineup. That's why they've been away. Is that true? Any truth in that?
I don't think it's anything to do with them leaking the lineups. I mean, there was rumours that it was one of Garnacho's family members. I don't know whether that's true. It's not for me to comment on that. Definitely not for me to comment. No one cares what I think about that. But that was a rumour going around about that. I think Rashford's. I just think he's been found out. I honestly think he's been found out. I haven't been a big fan of Rashford for years. I've never really got on the hype train of he's the English Mbappe, and because he has one good season every 3 seasons, I've never been sold on him, and I've been consistent on my X account for years with Rashford that I've never seen this great player that Man United fans see, and people see players differently. I could probably talk about a Newcastle player, and you would have a different opinion of him than me. But and that's just football. That's okay. You know what I mean? But I think Rashford's being found out. He's had a coach come in now that is just not accepting mediocre performances, and he's not letting it slide. And I think he's been told he needs to work harder. He needs to improve his game more. He needs to track back a bit more, do his defensive work. And I don't think he fancies it. And I think that's what the interview was about. I think he's come in and thought, I'm the main guy here. I'm the face of the club. The owners love me. I can play bad and I still play because I'm Marcus Rashford. I'm Manchester born and bred. The fans won't turn on me. And I think a lot of the fans have worked him out. And I think now probably 95% of the fan base want him to go, you know? And I think he's had a chat with Amorim, and Amorim's laid out, look, it's not the same system that you used to play. The left winger is going to have to do the defensive work now. So if that's your position, you're going to have to work that way and that way. And he doesn't want to do it. And for me, what other reason would Rashford not be in the squad under a new manager? Because he's made it very clear that everybody will get a chance to prove themselves, but he isn't Van Nistelrooy, he isn't Ten Hag, he isn't anybody else that's been there. He's Ruben Amorim, and this is how I play, and you need to play in my system because I'm the manager and I tell you what to do. And if you don't play well, you don't play. And I think Rashford's just went to his agent and thought, nah, I don't fancy this. And he's took the easy way out. Whereas when he got left out against Manchester City, for a local lad, that's a big deal. That's a big game, yeah? Massive game. And then we won, which is even worse for him. Because a lot of people were like, well, we won that game in a tough game. But people are like saying he needs to work harder. And then you've got other people like, well, why? We should build the team around him. We know what he's all about. So what's the difference between Rashford working hard and Ahmad working hard? Why does Ahmad work hard and chase loose balls, but Rashford won't? وليد, you've been speaking to me for years. Football is very simple, mate. Very, very simple. You know, at grassroots level, right to Champions League. You have to work hard. The team that wins the game 90% of the weeks in the Premier League is the team that works harder. Do Nottingham Forest have the best squad in the league? No. Where are they in the table? Do you know what I mean? Because they work hard. You know, and there's no excuse for not working hard, and he's just threw the towel in easy. He's just flung the towel in and thought, nah, I'm not willing to change. I don't have to do this. I'm Marcus Rashford. I'll go and play somewhere else. And I'll say this on here now, and we can come back to it, right? It will be the same problem at his new club when the fans work him out. And wait and see. If he goes over to Barcelona and Paris or wherever he's going to go and puts in performances like that, where he loses the ball and doesn't chase back to win it back, wait and see what the Parisian fans or the Barcelona fans say about him. That would be really interesting, because he won't get away with that, doing that in Paris. He won't get away with that in Italy or Spain. You know, he'll be told, and it'll be very, very interesting to see where his career goes. I actually think, and I've said it as well, I think he might end up where you are. I think he might end up in the Saudi League. But we'll have to wait and see.
Well, they said it's the price is going to be about £50 million.
Yeah.
To go. Okay, this is it's not very hard to understand about Rashford, but for me, I really confused about Garnacho situation. Why he's away? What's wrong?
I don't personally. I like Garnacho, but I don't personally know where he fits in the system. I don't think he can play a number 10 role. I don't think his game's suited to that. I think you get the best out of Garnacho when he can play wide and he gets at the defender. But that system doesn't dictate that, you know? And the one thing I like about Amorim is he's come in and he said, no, I know I haven't got the players for it, but this is the way we're going to play. And we don't look very good. We look really poor, which I'll get into later. But I like the way he's been brave and said, I'm not changing the system, because it would be easy just to go back to the 4-2-3-1 that we've played for years. And then the likes of Rashford and Garnacho probably are not in the situation they're in now. I think half of the issue with them two players in particular has been behavioural issues, maybe not trying so hard in training. There's got to be something for it, because they're not talented players. Like Garnacho, in my opinion, should be one of the future members of the club. But if he doesn't fit the system and the owners are going to stick with Amorim, he's got to go. And it's not that simple at elite level football just to get rid of players. It isn't Football Manager or FIFA where you can get rid of whoever you want. But it's a case of, does he fit the system? If he doesn't fit the system, can he be adapted into one of the roles in the squad? And has he got the capability and the will to want to learn to change and adapt his game? And I think Garnacho in particular is young enough. I think Rashford's too long in the tooth for it. He's too old and he doesn't want to adapt. So they're totally different scenarios, and I don't fully understand the Garnacho thing. And I don't have the knowledge of it either to understand it, but it'll be interesting to know that when the difference, this is the way I'll end this subject, yeah? Rashford and Garnacho got left out of the Manchester derby. From a football perspective, particularly Rashford, that's a hard one to take in a derby, yeah? Can you imagine a local lad being left out of the Newcastle Sunderland squad? It's a big deal. Game, the squad for the game, yeah? But when you get taken out of that environment and the manager says, look, that was that game. We start again as of Monday and it's a new game. We go towards the Tottenham game at the time. Garnacho performed really well in training and had a great attitude. Rashford was sick and wasn't at training. Yeah? So, and ever since, Garnacho's been in squads and been brought on and started a game, Rashford hasn't. So one person has took the slap on the wrist and thought, I need to change. Maybe I'm the problem. I need to work harder. My attitude needs to be better. I maybe need to intermingle with my team more. I need to understand what the manager's asking. The other player has thought, nah, I'll just go and do an interview and say I want to leave. That's the difference. And it's that straightforward as well. One player really wants to try and get better. One doesn't. And the age gap, there's an argument there to say, should Rashford change? Can he change? In my opinion, no, he can't.
Good stuff, Jimmy. We're still with Manchester United, but a mutual ground, or maybe that's right word to say it, no, mutual ground. We wonder, as Newcastle fans, we would like to know what happened with Dan Ashworth. We fight for him, gardening all the day, been gardening many times in a few years, and things fall out with Jim Ratcliffe, which I will gonna ask you about him later. So why then Ashworth leave? Some fans, we discussed with the fans in the WhatsApp group, they said it's because Amorim choices not fit than Ashworth for the players, but you know better, Jimmy. Please tell us.
To be honest, I don't know better, mate. I was just as confused by you about it all. I mean, you can't.
What you think, at least?
I can give you my view on it. I can't. I don't know the ins and outs. I can give you my view, and that's the one thing I will say about this. Like when I'm talking, people will listen to this that know me, that don't know me. It's just my opinion. I just tell football as I see it. So I think that's the whole thing's just one embarrassment. But I think it's just another thing to add to the Ineos mistakes, to be honest with you. And this was played out in the media and played out really badly from our point of view. I don't think the issue was that we wanted Dan Ashworth. I think it's the way that we went about it. And Newcastle kind of were in control of the whole situation. They were like, look, if you don't pay for him, you're not getting him. And I totally understood that. I had a little bit of banter with Newcastle fans about taking him, you know, because at the time he was a big asset. But I feel like from reading between the lines, I think the owners of Man U thought he was something he isn't. And I think they thought he was some sort of transfer guru because he signed a couple of good players at Newcastle and he'd done a good job at Brighton and he really helped the growth of English football with Southgate and the likes of your Fodens and all of them types of players that are world-class players now. I don't think they fully done their research on him. I think they thought he was going to pluck players left, right and centre out and get every single one of them right. And if you look at it, £45 million on Xerxes, it's not the best, is it? You know,
so,
it's not.
He was Dan Ashworth's job?
I think he was the one that was earmarking the players. I think.
How many players he bought? Dan Ashworth.
In the summer, we signed Yoro, who I wouldn't say didn't have nothing to do with it, but I feel like that was a collective signing. I think Yoro was bought to be the future of Man United's defence. You've got to remember, this kid had a massive reputation when he came to Man United. Real Madrid wanted him, and they really wanted him as well. They wasn't willing to pay for him. And Man U, doing Man U things, just paid the money. And they've put a lot of time and effort into this kid, and I think he will be brilliant as well. But he needs time. We went out and bought De Ligt, who in my opinion has been really good. He gets a lot of stick, particularly on social media, because he's not a pretty defender, but he does the job. I think he's been really good for United. He's made a couple of mistakes, but who hasn't? He looks like he's got the capability of being a Man United defender and that pressure that comes with it. People forget he's played for some of the biggest clubs in Europe. You know, Ajax, a massive club in Holland, a huge club. Yeah, famous club. He was captain at 18 years old for them. You know, that's unheard of, particularly for a team that's such cultural standpoint in world football is that the style of play and being an Ajax player and having that responsibility at 18 to wear the captain's armband, you've got to have something about you, you know. And then he's went and moved to the likes of Juventus, the likes of Bayern Munich. Yeah, I understand he's not at them clubs now, but you get some sort of education from being at a club like Bayern Munich. They do things correctly. They're a well-run club. When he went to Juventus, they were they were the best team in Italy. You know, they'd won countless league titles. They'd signed Cristiano Ronaldo at the time, and they bought him ahead of 3 or 4 massive clubs that wanted him. He isn't a bad player, and he's come to Man United. Took a little bit of time to settle in, and he predominantly is a Ten Hag signing, but I think he can work in an Amorim system, because going back to when Amorim was at Sporting, his central mid defender in a 3 was always a very aggressive, tall centre-back. He had Sebastian Coates, who used to be at Liverpool, playing in that role for 2 years at Sporting Lisbon, and he's just moved on now. And then he's brought Diamande in, who's a bit of more of a clever player. But I can see him playing that role for him and doing that well. So I rate that signing. So you've got a young lad coming in with massive potential. So you can't really judge him yet. He's only young. You've got De Ligt, who I think has been a good signing. Then we signed Mazraoui, who, in my opinion, has probably been the most consistent player. And he cost the least. He's been very good. He's showed real quality with the ball. Defensively, looks very good. There isn't a lot of defenders in England, particularly that can pocket Doku, and he did. And he looks like he's got a lot of quality, but he's almost got a bit more pressure on his shoulders now because he's actually came in and looked a real quality player that Man United expect that 8 out of 10 every week. And for the last maybe 2 to 3 games, he hasn't been great. But all in all, a good signing. So I would say 3 signings there are good. And then you've obviously got Xerxes, who parts of the games I can see what he can offer. He drops deep. He can link play up. Against Everton, I thought he was brilliant, but Everton's Everton this season. They're not a very good side. Even the bits he's done against Tottenham, I can see what he's got about him. Whether he's going to be good enough long term, whether he fits Amorim's system, I don't think so, personally. But Man United fans have already got rid of him. He's not good enough, so he needs to go. And he's been linked with links to Italy again because he's done well over there. So I'd probably say that signing's got a question mark over it. Probably a red flag, if I'm honest. I don't think he's going to be that player.
There was a breaking point, or suddenly Man United official says you have to go, or let you go.
No, I don't think anybody from the club in particular has told him that he wants to go, but it comes back down to the system again. And if you look at the only thing I can look at the moment with Amorim is the system. And I watched him a lot in Portugal. I watch a lot of Portuguese football. My childhood best friend is a Benfica fan. I literally grew up watching the Portuguese league. I've told you this before. So I watch a lot of Portuguese football, and Amorim's team at Sporting always had a focal point striker. When he first went to the club, he signed a striker that he had at Braga called Paulinho, and he was a big, strong, like combative, like Chris Wood type striker. That's the only type of person I can link him to that you can relate to from the Newcastle days. He's big, strong, can finish, good in the air. And then he upgraded Paulinho to Gyökeres. Big, strong, powerful goal scorer. There's nothing fancy about Gyökeres. Everybody raves about him. He's not technically great. He's just strong. He's very pacey, and he can score goals. People forget that this guy was at Coventry before Sporting Lisbon signed him. And this is the one thing with Amorim. His scouting at Sporting was fantastic. He signed Gyökeres from Coventry City in the Championship. He signed Hjulmand, who's a brilliant midfielder for Sporting Lisbon. Not fancy, not pacey, not great at anything, just a consistently solid player that's good with the ball, that can play between the lines. And he signed him from Lecce in Italy's Serie B at the time. 2 divisions below, he bought 2 players that completely transformed his whole team. And then he brought through youth players from Sporting Lisbon who have a great youth system. He also changed the goalkeeper when he came. It's one of the first things he did. So whether he changes Onana next season, I don't know. Time will tell. But all I can do is think about the system he played at Sporting and try and relate it to what he's doing at Man U, because he's already said he's not going to change. So that's the only way I can work out whether Xerxes is going to work.
If I'm not mistaken, then Ashford just left after Amorim came. right?
Just left after, yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that Man United official says when they talk about with Amorim, they can see he can pick the players later? No need for Dan Ashworth.
I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I feel like structurally you need a director of football. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need somebody that can go out and broker them deals. You need somebody that can negotiate.
So who will replace Dan Ashworth in Manchester?
He unofficially hasn't been replaced yet. This is what the fans are saying. Is it another case of, like, Man United are probably one of the only clubs in the last 5 to 6 years that haven't had a director of football. They didn't have somebody that was overseeing the transfer policy, and because I feel like modern day football now, it's not, you don't go to the manager and ask who they want. The manager comes in to manage the squad. And Amorim, the one thing to remember about this conversation, وليد, is Amorim's not a manager. He's a coach. And they're different. Yeah? Amorim's going to be on the grass with the players, training. Alex Ferguson was a manager. Yeah? Everything went through him. What type of players he... Amorim and global football in general now, maybe it's the same. Well, it must be the same at Newcastle, because I feel like the summer that you had wouldn't have been the summer that Eddie Howe would have wanted. Yeah? And we'll get on to Newcastle later if you want to. But a manager's not coming in now to buy the players. A manager's coming in to manage the players. There has to be a bigger picture of the recruitment from a club now. It can't just be one guy. Because what if you end up with, you make me the manager and I buy 15 players over 3 years, and then all of a sudden you don't want me no more, and you're bringing you in to do the job, and you don't want any of my players because they don't fit your system. There has to be a bigger picture. There has to be like, right, this is the way that we're going to go. This is the recruitment policy that we want. We want to go for players between 19 and 26. We want to play this brand of football. We need a manager that's going to facilitate this. This is how we want to play. This is the age group of the pool of players we're going to sign. We need a manager that can implement that. That it can't work now where you're like, right, okay, you can sign A, B, C, D, E, F, and G for your team, and in 3 years you're not cutting it because it hasn't worked, and now we've got to get another group of players. It doesn't work. There has to be and this is a structural thing at the club where you need a manager that can manage the team based on X, Y, and Z that the board and the club owners have put in place. It's a cultural thing. And this is the problem with Man U at the moment. There is no culture. So I hope I explained that well. I don't know whether I did. But
last question before going to Newcastle stuff, and you can tell a bit. It's a combined question about what Radcliffe changed in Manchester, and why, maybe it's not that combined, and why Ten Hag continues after he said, I will leave after the final of FA Cup against Manchester City. He will be leave as a hero. Why he continued to stay?
Honestly, I'm not. I don't know what Ratcliffe changed, to be honest with you. Like, being brutally honest, I don't know. I think he's got lots of great ideas, but none of them seem to be coming to fruition. It's funny because on one of my social media platforms earlier, it was when I done a fan vlog outside Old Trafford on the United stand a couple of years ago. And we were playing Newcastle, funnily enough. Actually, this one, I'm lying, was outside St. James's Park because I went to the game and we drew, and it was when Cavani equalised. Yeah. And the quote on the video says, we can't do the basics. And I looked at it this morning and I thought, we're in the same position now. We can't do the basics. And that's just not on the field. it's in the whole club. And as I say, look, everybody got on board with Jim Ratcliffe. Everybody is seeing him as the local hero that's finally going to get the Glazers out of the club and wants the club to win on the pitch. And I don't have any doubt that that's what he wants. But in my opinion, he done a deal with the devil. You know? Like, can you imagine? Just let me spin it a minute, right? I'm not avoiding the question, but I want, because I understand there's going to be more Newcastle fans listening to this than Man U probably, yeah, because of your influence. Can you imagine if the Saudis came in and bought 26% off of Ashley but kept him at the club? Can you imagine? Do you think the Newcastle fans would have been outside St James's singing Cannes songs and all of that? Yeah? And some people wonder why we're questioning Ratcliffe. He done everything he possibly could to get us percentage of the club because it's good for his CV, ain't it? Yeah? But and people forget.
He won 25%, right?
Yeah, 26%, I think it is. And I think I mean, this is a bit blunt, but I'll tell it as it is. I think he's another one of them. Like, look how many things he's got wrong, وليد. He got the Dan Ashworth one wrong, and that was played out in the media. Newcastle fans were laughing at us. Do you know what I mean? We've absolutely hunted this guy down for the best part of a year. Bantered Newcastle fans about him doing great stuff to his gardening, landscaping company while you were still paying him. And all of a sudden we get him and then we get rid of him after 6 months. Like, the banter I seen from your fan base towards us, and I thought, we can't say nothing. Like, we can't say nothing because it's embarrassing. And then there was the spin of, well, we just got it wrong. We've got rid of him quickly because we realised it wasn't working.
So do you think the same happened with Newcastle? They let him go, or they discuss, and they make fine, and they didn't make him maybe comfortable so he can leave? Do you think that's what happened? Do you think Newcastle was intending to have him or keep him?
No, I think Newcastle were building a future with him. And I think now, if you sat him in a dark room with no cameras and no audio and asked him whether he regrets leaving Newcastle, I'd probably say he would say yeah. But I'd say the same thing about Amorim. If you put him in an empty room with no cameras and audio and asked him if he wished he would have stayed at Sporting, he would say yeah. You know? Look at the redundancies at Man United. Look at the transfers that have been made, the cutbacks that have been made for the club, the false promises from Ineos. It's a year into their ownership now, and what's really changed? I would actually appreciate understanding it from your perspective, because I appreciate you want to hear what I've got to say. But what do you think about Ineos? What's changed? Tell me what's changed, because I don't know. Like, you know, I talk about Man United a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like, my opinion's great sometimes, but it's actually like, you've been in this situation and you've got the Saudis in Newcastle now that care about the team on the field, and like, from an outside point of view, what do you think about Ineos? Where's the improvement? I don't see it.
You mean in Manchester United?
Yeah, they kept Ten Hag when they blatantly ousted him to the media that they were looking for a new manager, and they wanted Thomas Tuchel. They couldn't get him, so they kept him. Made out they give him a new contract when they didn't. They extended his deal that he already had in place to trigger another year. There was never a new contract. You know, it's all spin. We're going to rejuvenate Manchester back in Manchester. It's all nonsense. It's all media spin, like, and positivity. Like, hand on heart, and this is from me now, a Manchester United fan, asking you, a Newcastle fan, what's changed at Man United from your perspective? I know you don't pay attention to Man U as much as your club, and I understand that. But what's changed? Like, where's it got better?
Actually, I'm quite familiar with most of the teams.
Yeah.
I am more maybe with Jose Mourinho situation. I believe after Mourinho, things didn't get better at any aspect. It's of course, as Ronaldo says, the fish thing. It's something with the management of Manchester. It seemed they want to get Manchester back to Ferguson era, but they failed because maybe continuous of bad choices of the coach and the players. They are in trouble with the players. As I see, I always check the lineup. I said, what is this? From where these players came? Okay, maybe they are good in Dutch league or French league, but I remember Manchester United was nobody can get a spot in the lineup unless he's super, unless he's really a big name and keep his position for a while. So I think it's a series of bad choices, and it's very hard to bring a player with the coach ideas and tactics, and vice versa. When they have good coach, they don't have good players. If there is good quality players, the coach are not that brilliant with them. So I believe Mourinho, he really got the bottom of this, and when he said the best achievement is the second league, because
everybody laughed at him when he said that.
Yeah,
I thought he was like, he had a bit of a lack of ambition. But I tell you what, I would bite your hand off to finish second now. I would go to Manchester to celebrate if we finish second. You know, like, because we are a million miles away from second.
Yes, and the league table talk about itself really. When you see, let's see here. What is the word? I think Manchester scored 20 goals only.
Yeah.
Now, 14th position, scoring 22 and achieved 21. No, sorry, achieved 24 and scored 21. Very weak defense, very weak attacking. 6 wins only.
I think the easiest way to describe it, right, is, and this is where I can get involved with you, right? Let's just think of a back four at the moment from Newcastle's perspective, yeah? And I'm going to say, I know, just take injuries and all that out, okay? At left back, you're going with Hall, yeah? Lewis Hall, yeah? Botman, Shaw, Trippier or Livramento, yeah? That's your back four. Now pick a Man United player and replace someone. You don't want to, do you?
Maybe Luke Shaw, Brian, but Luke Shaw have injury history.
Yeah, I would probably give you Luke Shaw, but yeah, Luke Shaw's not even in the equation. Yeah, and I'm not sure if I'm swapping Hall for Luke Shaw anyway. If Luke Shaw's 100% fit and he's played 30 games, yes, of course. But he isn't. And you're looking at a lot of Man United players now, and you wouldn't replace Newcastle's squad. Like Joelinton, Bruno, and Tonali. Who are you taking out of Man United's midfield? Are you going to swap Tonali for Casemiro? No.
No,
are you going to swap?
I would replace Bruno Fernandes with Joelinton.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, but do you know what I mean? There's not a lot. Whereas if you said Fergie era, who are you replacing Newcastle with? You'd take the whole Man U team. Newcastle fans wouldn't because they hate us. But if you're looking at it from a neutral fan perspective and picking Ferguson's team over, I don't know who was in charge at the time, it doesn't matter. But you're always going to get Man United players that are going to come ahead. But now it's like, I wouldn't I wouldn't there's no one in our squad that starts in front of Isak.
Yes, Isaac and Gordon.
There's no one that starts ahead of Gordon. You don't have Rashford or Garnacho or nobody starts ahead of Gordon. In my opinion, Ahmad would get in your team all day long. But not that the Newcastle fans would say that because he played for Sunderland. But he's probably the only one that would get into the majority of teams at the moment. There's no Man United players that would get in Liverpool's team.
What about Maino? Maino, he gets a great start, but I didn't know about him lately.
He's been poor, been really poor, and he's another player that you can't criticise because he's come through the academy. He's almost another Rashford, but you've got to look past the fact that he's an academy graduate. He's a great player. He's just not playing well. He just hasn't adapted to the system. I don't think he's actually fit enough at the moment to play in an Amorim 2 midfield. You've got to be a workhorse, an absolute workhorse in that midfield. That Ugarte looks good, looks comfortable, looks aggressive, looks good on the ball when he's got it, can play in tight areas, will do his defensive work, but he'll also try and progress the play. Maino just looks like he's really struggling. He looks like he's about 60% fit. You know, he just looks leggy. When he gets the ball, he's making silly mistakes. He's taking one touch too many. But I'm not just going in on him. There's lots of players that are doing this. And it's going to take time to learn who can play the system and who can't. And that's the reason why we're going to have a lot of short-term pain. It's not going to get any better. I've come to terms with the fact that we're not doing nothing this season. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll be out of all the cups. We're out of one of them already. Arsenal will knock us out of the FA Cup. We might not even get through the Europa League.
In general, since Mourinho, things getting worse. Solskjaer, maybe sometimes some few games in between. But what about Mr. Roy? Is it just a backfire of Ten Hag situation, or is he really that good? Because now he's in Leicester City, is not doing very well.
No, but I think you need to take some sort of context behind Leicester. They're not a great team. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't necessarily judge Van Nistelrooy at the moment.
Of course. So how is his days in sideline of Manchester?
It was a bit meh. You know, it was very much the same. It was, you could get behind him because of who he was. You know, it's very similar. I mean, different scenarios, but it's very similar to when Shearer was Newcastle manager. The team was awful, but he was trying to get a tune out of them, and because it was Shearer, everyone got behind it. But they still went down. You know what I mean? The team weren't good enough, and that's why they got relegated. Not because of Shearer. He was brought in to try and sprinkle magic dust. It doesn't exist.
Psychological effect.
Yeah, and I think a lot of fans got behind Van Nistelrooy, just like they got behind Solskjaer. Solskjaer played some good football at Man U. We were played some good football. There was a harmony around the club. It was probably one of the better times, but in the end, quality will always prevail, and he wasn't a very good manager. He got a tune out of the players, and he came in and done a really good job, but eventually it petered out because he wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough to go that extra level, and that happens in football. You get to a certain point, and you've got to go up now. And you can't because you're not good enough tactically. And in the end, you get found out, and that they were some of the better days.
This example, Jimmy, is it fit on Eddie Howe that he can't do the maximum?
You're opening a whole different can of worms asking me about Eddie Howe now.
Yeah, we need to talk about
being brutally honest. I think the meltdown in the fan base was a bit much. I looked at it from afar because I don't watch Newcastle as much as I used to watch them. I've tended not to. I watch more foreign football than English football now, to be honest. I watch a lot of Italian football, Portuguese football. I don't watch lots of Premier League games. So if Newcastle were on the telly in a half-decent game, I might watch them if I'm not doing nothing. But I used to watch them a lot, and I used to be very educated on Newcastle's team and have a lot to say about them. But I can't now because I don't watch them as much as I used to. But I've seen the results, and
from what you hear from the fans.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of negativity, particularly on social media, which I tend not to read too much in because social media is social media. People can have an agenda and just run with it because they don't like the guy But if you're looking at it from a standpoint of results, yeah, I understood where it was coming from, but I almost feel like, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I almost feel like some Newcastle fans think they're a Champions League club and they're not. You know, I don't think you've got that level of quality to consistently be a Champions League team. If you were, and this is why I say this on the basis, and I don't mean it disrespectfully because I don't. If you were a Champions League club, you would have got in the Champions League again after the season you got in it. You know, and consistency always comes into fruition, and this is why I'm interested with Aston Villa. They got in the Champions League. They're doing well in the Champions League. Can they maintain it? And at the end of the season, we'll find out. And then if they can, they're a Champions League club. I don't think Newcastle are there, and I feel like some fans automatically think that it can get better than it is. But I actually don't think it's that bad. I think they've got a really good manager. I listened to his interview with Simon Jordan the other day, which I thought was fascinating because he got grilled and the way that he dealt with it was really good. His morals, his philosophy, his belief in his backroom team, the way he wants to play football. You can't not like Eddie Howe. Whether he's the right man longer term, but that comes from the top. That doesn't come from us in the stands. It comes from the management team where they see the club. And if the financial fair plays get lenienter and Newcastle can spend more money, yeah, okay, they might need a better manager for the big jump. But at the moment, I don't see what he's doing wrong. And his current form, I mean, what have you won the last 4 games? And you're playing some really good football. You've started scoring goals again. You look better defensively. I think you've conceded, 1 goal or something in the last 4 games? 2 goals maybe. Like, you look good. I think you've scored, 15 goals in the last 4 or 5 games or something like that. Like, I would almost need to speak to more Newcastle fans that have the opposite opinion to me and want Eddie Howe out for them to understand what they want. I feel like he's doing a good job for where they should be.
Yes, Jimmy, but for me, I'm talking almost daily and reading a lot about. We have a group with 700 Saudi or Arabic fan about Newcastle, and they talk daily. So I got the selection of players of Eddie Howe. They are not happy with it. For example, Kelly, the defender with high-rated salary, and the wanting from Eddie Howe to renew Sean Longstaff contract. So they're not happy with the recent choices of Eddie Howe. And he wanted Geehy for 70 million last summer. So they thought that his choosing the players is not that great. And that's why the fans think that they are happy because Paul Mitchell is now will interfere with Eddie Howe and try to bring different names with less budget from different leagues. So they are worrying. Are they really getting along? Paul Mitchell, the new the new manager, and with Eddie Howe in the January transfer window, because we've been read from Mark Douglas. He's saying that Newcastle interested in Khosanov, Uzbek defender, I think from French team called Lens. He's only
yeah.
20 years old, yeah. And we just always have this name coming along that Bakayoko as needed right back in Dutch league, which is about 50 million. Lee Raider other day said it maybe not happening in the January because the Dutch are hard seller. So this is what the fans angry mostly about Eddie Howe is some selection of players not that great. Also, uh, we notice that we're doing good against good teams or strong teams, but with the mid-table teams, we fall out a lot. I think this is the most thing they don't like about Eddie Howe. For me, I agree with the selection. It's not that great. But from the tactics, I understand he's still not the top level. He will get better. But as you said, it's very hard to continue when playing in the Champions League spot. This is what I hate about Newcastle. If there is few games, if we have like two games in a week, it's very hard for Newcastle, really. Very hard to continue winning.
Yeah. The thing is as well, like we're just fans, ain't we? And we've got opinions, you know. I don't agree with all of the teams that Amorim picks, but Amorim's the guy in the job. Like he doesn't care about Jamie's opinion. Do you know what I mean? He's worked all week on the training ground with the players, and he trusts the players. And it's like I say, it's a completely different context of conversation what I'm going to say right now, but from somebody that actually coaches a football team, you do trust certain players, and you do. It's a totally different level, don't get me wrong. I mean, Premier League football and grassroots football is totally different. But you do get that bond with players, and they do a job for you. And sometimes they're the first name on the team sheet, and the parents probably look at me sometimes and think, why is he playing him there? Because I've seen something there, and I know how he can help the team. You know, it's hard to understand that until you're in that position, and maybe like have an opinion of football and having an opinion of lineups. That's part and parcel of being a football fan. But how's picking a team to try and win a game, whether it works or not, is a different story. But everyone in the summer was happy that Kelly came in on a free. I remember seeing some other outlets, not just yourself, some other Newcastle outlets. I seen a great signing, brilliant bit of business on a free. Now all of a sudden he's not good enough. And it's like, wait a minute, he's had 6 months? You know, like, give him a chance, you know? Newcastle had a lot of injuries. He's come in, he's done the job. Longstaff's been there for years and used to be the best thing since sliced bread, one of our own being sung, and all of a sudden now he's not good enough. It's like, do you know what I mean? It's just fickle, though. A lot of Man United fans, to put it into context from our standpoint, were banging on the club to get rid of McTominay. Now he's gone. Half of them want him back. Like, you know, it's just opinion, وليد. It happens, and it's just part of the game. And I understand it, but there's a bigger picture, and Eddie Howe's the one that's making the calls. Whether you think that Longstaff shouldn't start or not is absolutely irrelevant. You know, it isn't irrelevant because your opinion matters.
The results speak about itself. When Finale plays, Newcastle gets better results.
Yeah, and look, and Tonali's a funny one because Tonali, in my opinion, it has the potential to be world class. I love Italian football, وليد. I love it. I watch it every weekend, 2 or 3 games every weekend. And he was brilliant at AC Milan. And AC Milan weren't the best team when he was there. And he was really good at Brescia when he first came through, you know? And like a real good quality player. And now he's come to Newcastle. He had the gambling stuff, and now everyone's seeing his quality. But he's a brilliant player, you know. But I've also seen when he's had a bad game, people have been saying he shouldn't play. And I'm like, right, should he play or shouldn't he play? You know, it's just social media. It's just we all think we're the best manager in the world. You know, we think our opinion matters, but in reality, it doesn't really matter what we think. We're just fans and we're wholehearted and we love the team, but our opinions are relative. It is important in here because we think it's important.
You are right, Jimmy. But the thing is, with the situation of Newcastle, we have limited budget.
Yeah.
So why you spent it on highly expensive English players? While you can spend it on different skills players and maybe lower price.
Well, if you look at the recruitment, like the key recruitments from Howe's time so far, yeah, he's brought Lewis Hall in for big money from Chelsea. It's going to be a brilliant left back. Will play for England. Yeah?
They said Dan Ashworth to bring him.
Yeah, but since Howe's been there, yeah? And then you look at Livramento, brilliant player. Will play for England as well. Yeah?
Yeah, Livramento, they have choice.
Botman, another brilliant player. Solid centre-back. Would get into most Premier League teams in the top 6, yeah? Gordon, fantastic signing. Like, did I think Gordon could be that type of player when you signed him? Absolutely not. Trippier, I'm not Trippier's biggest fan. I'm not going to act like I am. But quality player for Newcastle, done well. Probably struggling a bit now because of age. Eventually, Livramento will take that position, and he has been consistently playing well. Trippier has been a great signing.
It wasn't about the age. He had family issues.
Ah, okay. Pope, in my opinion, was there better goalies out there? Yeah, but solid signing. This summer, I think this was probably the worst summer for Newcastle.
For Pope, you mean?
From like this summer that Newcastle's just had, I think this is probably the worst summer since Howe's been there. So is that Eddie Howe's fault, or
no,
is it Paul Mitchell's?
No, it's for BCR, but Paul Mitchell says I have supporting role only about the plans. So Eddie Howe wanted only Gigi that time.
Yeah. But I don't think they had a good window. I mean, what did they bring in? 2 goalkeepers? Like, and they brought in the lad from Bournemouth, like we were speaking about a minute ago. Like, it weren't the best window in the world. I don't think they should have sold Chris Wood, but that's my opinion. And again, didn't fit Howe's system. But in my opinion, he's a better option than Callum Wilson, because Callum Wilson is your Luke Shaw. Can't stay fit. It's that's maybe Howe got that one wrong. But it's just football, and that's what I'm starting to realise, that everybody has opinions and thinks about what they think's right, but it's the manager that makes the decisions at the end of the day, and we can't control it as much as we would love to. And it is what it is. I thought Newcastle's window was poor, and I think that contributed to the poor start. But they're starting to pick results up now, and they look like a really decent side again. So whose fault is it? Was it Howe's fault the team weren't playing well? But if it is Howe's fault, okay, criticise him. But you're going to give him the credit now he is playing well. I think that's what I see a lot in the fan base this season, that they're okay to criticise Howe, but now everything's going well, give him his flowers again. You know, so who's culpable for the turnaround in form? It's Howe, ain't it? Or Mad Dog. He seems to be the manager nowadays. So it's who made that transition back from really bad form and everybody wanting him sacked, or 80% of the fan base wanting him sacked. Maybe that's a bit too much, maybe 60%. And all of a sudden now, you just look like a really good team, to the point where I ain't expecting to beat you. You know, I if you give me £20 to put a bet on, it's going on Newcastle to win. You know, I don't think we're going to beat you. The only saving grace we've got is the fact that it's at home, and that doesn't really save face anymore, because Old Trafford's just another ground. It's not a fortress like it used to be. It just isn't, because the players on the pitch are not good enough. And if you're going off form, Newcastle will win. And that's what I'm expecting. I know you'll ask me a prediction later, but I think Newcastle will win the game. Honestly.
Yeah. You summed it up quickly. You would like to talk about the game, and you summed it up.
Yeah, no, that's honestly what I think, mate. And I can't say something I don't believe in and say, I think we'll win. No, I don't.
For me, I think it's the usual draw.
You think it's a draw?
Yeah.
I would take a draw. Can we just have a draw now? Can we sign that off? Or, you know, I don't think so, mate. But I don't know. We might shock ourselves and play like we did against Man City. Who knows? But we're going to have to be at it with you.
So what do you think Amorim will do in the summer?
In the summer?
Are he going to, and then in the transfer window, I mean. Is he getting some Portuguese players, or this is not going to happen?
I don't personally think we're going to sign anyone, which is funny, actually, when you think about it, because we're in a mess. But if you give me one player to sign, one position to sign at the moment, it would sensibly would have to be a left-sided player. But if you were giving me money and saying, Jamie, you can sign one player, I'm signing someone that can score a goal, because we don't have a goal scorer.
Yes, exactly.
Like you've probably seen on my X account the other week, I don't know when it was, I said, give everything that you've got to Gyökeres. Go and sign him. No matter what they want for him, give them the money, because he will win you games you shouldn't win. He's a goal scorer, and we just do not have a goal scorer at the moment. And if you don't score goals, you don't win games. It's as simple as that. And we just don't have a clinical goal scorer. I think I put on my account a few months ago, and it will still be on there. I said Højlund and Xerxes won't score 15 goals between them this season. Between them, not each, between them. And I stand by that. And it's not because I don't rate them. I really like Højlund. He's just nowhere near the level of a Man United number 9. You've got to think. It's like comparing Højlund's the main man at Manchester United, yeah? In my opinion, I know it naively, but one of the biggest clubs in the world, yeah? One of the most successful English football team have got a young kid as their main striker, when we used to have Mark Hughes, Eric Cantona, Dwight York, Andy Cole, Solskjaer, Sheringham, Van Nistelrooy, Rooney, Van Persie, Tevez, Ronaldo. How many more? And we've got Højlund now, a young Danish kid that's still learning his craft. And everybody's going in on him. And I do it as well. And I give him a hard time. And sometimes I think, do you know what? He's a young lad, Jamie. Why are you putting rubbish on your social media about him not playing well? He's got so much pressure on himself. And he's not ready. And we need like a clinical, like experienced striker that can hold the ball up, score goals in games where you get a draw at Arsenal away, or you can go to St James's Park and win 1-0 with a good goal, or just using St James's as an example because I'm speaking to you, or you go to Villa Park and you get a draw when you should have got beat because you've got a goal scorer that gets that one chance and scores. But Højlund's not that player.
Everybody talking about that Swedish kid who play with Isaac. His name is Frasberg, something like that. The Swedish who score against City.
Gyökeres.
Yes, I think he was with Morium as well.
Yeah, he bought him at Sporting, yeah.
So,
but that's what I say. People, it makes me laugh when you see the comparisons with Gyökeres. Everybody seems to think he's like this Haaland type player. He's not. He's not the best on the ball. His touch ain't that great. He's just really strong, really pacey, and he can score. And Amorim's system round Sporting Lisbon was already set. He just needed a goal scorer, and he put the cherry on the top of the cake with him. And then they start scoring loads of goals.
So do you want him, or do you think this is the solution for Manchester?
Going off of the history of watching Amorim's Braga team and his Sporting Lisbon team, he likes a big, focal, strong centre-forward. So if that's the basis, there's only a couple of them in the world. You've got Gyökeres at Sporting Lisbon, who could play that role. You've got Victor Boniface that could play that role at Bayer Leverkusen. If we could go and buy him, he's that type of striker. You've got Osimhen, but I mean, I'm not sure what's happening with him. Napoli are going to want big money. But there's only certain types of players out there that can play that type of role. And you have to get the right one, because if you don't get the right one, you end up with what we've got now. You know?
Do you think it will happen the same with Ten Hag bringing half of the Dutch league? Is he going to bring some players from Portuguese?
I think it's natural for coaches to go back to previous players. If you understand the way Amorim's Sporting Lisbon team was, he had specialist players doing certain things in the team. You know, like when I spoke about Cortés earlier, used to play for Liverpool, wasn't very good at Liverpool. Played really well at Sporting Lisbon because his role was to win headers from long balls, to give the stability to the back two. And then he had the likes of Inacio, who everybody raves about, because he plays diagonal balls. He plays balls down the wings. He's good with the ball. And then Diamande, and he bought De Bast from Anderlecht, a really good Belgium young player that's really comfortable on the ball in the wide positions in the centre-backs. So he wants specialist players in certain roles. His wing-backs need to be very much up and down. It's not just you go that way and you hope the defenders do it this way. You'd get back as well. And he's got one of them in Quenda, young Quenda, that come from Sporting's youth academy. Nuno Santos, his left wing back, had some of the highest stats for running backwards and forwards in Europe last season. And this season, based off of Amorim playing, and then they signed another young lad, a Brazilian, Kotomo. He does it as well. Very high stats, up and down, up and down. Not pretty players, not fancy names that you would want your club to sign, just very good players at the role. And I feel like this is where Man U are now. They need to forget about names and they need to buy players that fit systems. Doesn't matter whether it's a superstar Galactico or whether it's someone we sign from Wolves. Doesn't matter. If he can do the role, great. And I feel like that's it now. Man United's transfer policy needs to change. They need to back the manager. They need to understand it's going to take time. It's going to get worse before it gets better. If you look at our fixture list in the next 3 games, we've got Juve, we've got Liverpool and Arsenal. We're probably going to lose all of them. Yeah, in my opinion. Yeah, if we're going to get a result out of any of them games, it might be against Juve. Because we're not going to beat Liverpool at Anfield. I'm dreading that. I might hide on that game, to be honest, instead of watching it.
Speaking
Arsenal,
You hate this question, but do you think Liverpool for the title?
You can't ask me that. Nah, yeah. They look so consistent, and they look like they can play multiple games.
Okay. Chelsea have a chance for the title.
I think Chelsea are a really good team, and it's funny that you've mentioned Chelsea, because I feel like there's a lot of doom and gloom in United's fan base at the moment, but I think Chelsea are a prime example of, if you can get a good manager, eventually it'll get better. Because Maresca has done really well there, and they look like a really good team. And they invested a lot of money, they had a lot of change, different style, and now they look like a really decent side. I think, from my perspective, I'm looking at them and thinking, they were awful last year. Maybe we're having that awful season this year, but next year we'll be a bit better. Not saying we'll be much better, but we'll look like a bit more of an organised, better side. Chelsea are a good example for that. And they're a good team, but I just think they'll slip a little bit. They'll drop points when the pressure gets on them, whereas I don't think Liverpool have got that in them. They've got everything they need from back to front to win a title. They're solid everywhere.
Last topic, Jimmy. It's important as long as you. Of course, I'm a Manchester United fan, but you know the things with Manchester City. What's going on with City and Guardiola? We really lost. Is it because the cases? Is it because Rodri? What is it? What's going on?
I think a lot's been looked at Rodri's injury, and it definitely is playing a part. But I don't think that's the only reason why they're dropping points. I think they've got a lot of injuries. I don't know how much motivation's there from Pep now.
You mean they are taking a risk, the players?
Yeah, they. I think the one thing with Guardiola, and I mean, Guardiola has been the best manager probably post Ferguson, really, like with regards to consistently performing, you know, year out, year in, year out, that you would always know they would go on a run and they would be a really good team and they'll win leagues. I mean, what he's done is amazing, really, when you think about it, although it's not been great from a Man U fan's perspective, but what he's done at City has been amazing. But I almost feel like the one thing that sets apart Ferguson from Guardiola, and I'm not saying one's better than the other in this chat, is Ferguson always freshened up his team. And he always knew when a player needed to leave because he was maybe getting a bit old, his legs had slowed down, or he'd won a bit too much and that winning hungry mentality wasn't there no more, and he would move them on. Like, to give you some examples, Paul Ince, great player for Man United. When they got rid of him, everyone was like, what is Sir Alex doing? Andrei Kanchelskis, one of my favourite Man United players, fantastic, consistent winger for years, Russian. I loved him. I've got shirts in that wardrobe behind me with his name on them. Lots of them, about 5 actually. I loved him. He was my idol when I was younger, Kanchelskis. And he got rid of him. Mark Hughes, he got rid of him. David Beckham, he got rid of him. When they started getting comfortable, he had to stand. Yeah. And he always knew when he needed to put a little bit of a puzzle in there. Okay, Keenan Scholes are playing really well in centre midfield. We'll buy Veron. Veron was fantastic at Lazio. He came to Man United. It didn't quite work out, but he was a fantastic player, and he put a player in there just to cause a bit of havoc, to say, right, yours might be there now, but I'm going to buy a Argentinian international who was in one of the best, won a UEFA Cup with Lazio. I'm going to put him in there now. So you've got an international player to beat. You don't want him to take your spot? Work harder. And I feel like Guardiola's almost let his City team get old. You know? They've been that good. He's almost, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier about trusting players. And he trusts them. He trusts Kyle Walker. He trusts Kevin De Bruyne. He trusts Bernardo Silva. And they're getting old, you know, and to consistently keep doing it at that level for year after year, eventually the train has to stop at some station, doesn't it? You know, eventually the train can't go any further, and I think they've just ran out of gas. They've ran out of petrol, and they need to refresh the team, and they've got a big job.
They reached the top, the Champions League, the World Cup, but after that, huge downfall happened. Moto here says, "Oh, sure, go on."
No, go on.
Moto says here, as many as fans saying, problem of Manchester City this season, they are devastated because the expected punishment, they will maybe lose points or maybe get relegated. So this is a reason.
Yeah, I think that's probably playing a part. It can't be helping the situation. It's just such a strange one. I mean, I haven't personally ever seen a fall off like it. Not from a top club. Like, I was trying to actually think of a club that was up here and that have just literally evaporated like they have, and I can't think of one. There hasn't been a drop off from a major club like that in a long time. I mean, it's got to the point now, and I know this is going to come across funny, but you almost wonder when they're going to win again. You know, like, and that can get into players' heads. You know, it's hard. It's just such a drop off. You know, and everybody's almost saying now that it's a bad squad. I'm like, wait a minute, this squad's unbelievable. You know, they won the quadruple. They won the treble. Sorry, like they looked untouchable. They were going up against Real Madrid's top, Bayern Munich's, beating them. This is an elite level team. You know, they went on a run of 12, 13 wins in a row to win the league last year or something stupid like that. Like, and they've had like Liverpool breathing down their neck every year. Arsenal have been coming up. They've had rivals and they've just been brushing them off like they're nothing. And I almost feel like that neglect of, you know, when I said right at the start of the show, if you buy bad players, you end up with a bad team. Yeah, that goes from every line of football, like not just elite level football, any club, whether it's Sunday League team in the park across the road from me or Manchester City. If you don't buy the right players and replace the right players, eventually you're going to end up with a bad team. And that's what's happened at Man U. They've spent a lot of money, but you said right at the start of this show, they've wasted a lot of it. And Man City have brought in, like, they let Mahrez go and replaced him with Doku. Mahrez was a world-class player at Manchester City. They've brought in Savinho to play when Mahrez plays now. And Doku's went over to the left. He's nowhere near as good as him. He's a good player, but he's not the level of what he should be.
Alvarez as well. Alvarez.
Yeah, they let Alvarez go. But as I say, they let Palmer. Yeah, that's what I mean. And if you look, they've let that's a great analogy. They've let him go. They've let Palmer go. He's went on to be one of the best players in the league. They've got rid of Mahrez, and the replacements haven't been good enough. You know, and when you've got that top level tier player and you bring in someone that's about here, it's just not the same consistency. You know.
But what do you think of Guardiola's reaction, and why didn't see that coming? I
don't think anyone seen it coming, did they? I didn't think, honestly, and this will make you laugh. I didn't think. Go on, sorry.
No, it's okay. A reaction of Guardiola. What will make him laugh?
I think it's aged him.
Huh?
I think it's aged him. He looks older in the last few months. I don't know. I honestly don't. I don't know the answer to it. I don't know what's happened really. I'm just trying to enjoy it because it's like they've been the best for years.
Yeah, but even if your enemy, you will cry for him a bit. He's renewed 2 years, and the player didn't take it very well.
Yeah, because I think naturally you need. I mean, how many years has he been at the club now? I don't know if anybody listening can tell me. I'm not sure. Maybe 6, 7 years, maybe. He's won everything, and it's like, where's the motivation to keep going? You know, and if you listen to a lot of stuff of when he was at Barcelona, he was that regimented on how he wanted his team to play. Some of the players almost got ill with it. It was like the fun aspect had gone out of football, and a lot of people are making the comparisons with Grealish. Now, people seem to forget and slate Man United for spending 80-odd million on Antony. Manchester City spent £100 million on Grealish. Nobody ever talks about it. And I'm not going to get on Grealish's back because I love Grealish. Like Aston Villa Grealish, I loved him. I thought he was brilliant. And I really wanted him to come to Man U. But Pep Guardiola's changed his game. Like, Grealish used to get the ball and run at players and commit players. Now he just passes back. Yeah? And it's not always the player that's changed. It's like you've got to play for a manager. And it's hard. Like, I have a striker. I've moved teams now. I coach a new team. Not my old team no more. So I've had to go into a brand new group of 22 players and try and work out what they're good at and what they're not. And I had a lad, and he's a lovely kid, and he's the most down-to-earth lad in the world as well, a lad called Harry. Big, strong centre forward. And when I seen him in training, I thought, you are my Haaland. You're going to bully people. But do you know what? He's the best tackler and passer in the team. So he plays in midfield for me, and he wins everything in there. And the parents are like, wait a minute, he's played up front for years. Yeah, well, not anymore. He plays in midfield for me because I can see other aspects of his game. And in the first 3 games, he wasn't scoring goals, but he was winning the ball back all the time and setting up chances for everybody else. Okay, so let's move you here, and we'll try and change your game, and I'll coach you, and I'll show you how I want you to play. And he's consistently an 8 out of 10 every week. To the point where, and you can change a player to fit your system, and it's different at Premier League level. Don't get me wrong, like to what I'm coaching at. I'm coaching young lads on the field on a Friday and Saturday, not Premier League and Champions League. But he wants Grealish to play a certain way, and he takes attributes out of his game. But that's football, you know, and managers see things differently. Every manager. It's like the Newcastle fans. Some people don't see why Longstaff plays, but if you sat down and had a chat with Eddie Howe, he'd probably tell you how well he trains, how well he does this type of aspect of the game. He'll retain the ball. He might pass sideways or backwards, but he keeps the ball. He doesn't lose the ball. And that might be his justification for picking him. But you might not like Longstaff, but Eddie Howe might think he's a great player for that role. It's totally different, and I feel like that's what's happened at Man City. Poor recruitment, letting really good players go and not replacing them with the same level of quality, and changing players' roles to the point they're maybe a bit drained. They maybe need a new face, some new ideas. I don't know. That's the only thing I can put it to. You know?
For me, don't get me wrong, I like Longstaff, but I believe we can get much better players.
Yeah.
This was lovely, Jimmy. I know it was that interesting or happy. That was happy topic for us, but I really enjoyed this. Thank you. Really appreciate your coming in the almost New Year Eve. And really appreciate that, and I wish you all the best for the future. and we're gonna enjoy the game, inshallah. And I believe it's a draw. We expect a Newcastle win. We'll see about that. And we'll chat later about that.
I'm sure you'll WhatsApp me if you win.
The good thing about Newcastle and Manchester United, always expected to be better. The teams are going to get better. So this is make us not always in worry. Thank you, really, Jimmy.
No, thank you very much for having me. I haven't done a podcast for a long time, so it's nice to come back and do one with you and talk a little bit of football and give my opinion. As I say, people listening to this might agree with me, might disagree. That's okay. It's just the way I see it. I'm not an expert. I'm just a fan like everybody else, and I've got my opinions on stuff. But always a pleasure to come on and speak to you, mate. And to be fair, it's been great talking football, but it's just nice to see you again, mate. I haven't spoke to you for a long time. We catch up on WhatsApp, but it's nice to have a face-to-face chat and talk a bit of football. So thank you for having me, mate.
Of course, Jimmy, and we really enjoy the topics, and I really learned a lot of stuff, and it's good to share opinions. I always make you realize some points you're missing or understood differently. كان معنا المدرب جيمي ماكاي من نيوكاسل ومدينة مانشستر. تحدثنا كثير عن المباراة، وراح نلخص إن شاء الله بعض هذه الأمور اللي تحدثنا فيها. نتحدث عن بعض الأمور الخاصة ب مانشستر يونايتد قبل مواجهة نيوكاسل يونايتد. ايضا تكلمنا عن دان اشوت في الموضوع اللي دائما تسالوني عنه، وجاوبوا جيمي بشكل ممتاز. نشكركم، لا تنسوا الانضمام لقناه نيوكاسل مع وليد، الاشتراك في القناه والانضمام لمجموعه الجروب المجتمع الواتساب لرابطه نيوكاسل. شكرا لكم وتصبحوا على خير.